Hello, BookTube. I'm here to talk about the ongoing series that I'm reading, the Rougon-Macquart series by Emile Zola, or Rougon-Macquart. I don't know the correct pronunciation, but the second book is His Excellency Eugene Rougon. Now, this is a few years following the first book, The Fortune of the Rougons, and it's a couple years. It starts out a couple years after the coup d'état of Napoleon III, and Eugene is the son. That he makes an appearance, and then there's in the first volume, and there's letters from him to his father and his mother. And he's instrumental or helps with the coup, and he sort of has inside knowledge. And we start out here that he's been a minister, but there's been a scandal. But anyway, he's sort of in a bit of disgrace, and he's leaving office. And literally, he's cleaning out his office and burning documents. Um, and it goes. Well, he's in disgrace for a while, and there's a woman that he basically lusts after. She's Italian, but she lives in France. A young woman, and he, as I say, he lusts after her, and she likes him as well, and she would like to marry him. She's craving power, and by marrying someone who's powerful and then working within that, she sees that as sort of a way to get where she wants. It doesn't, the story doesn't really tell you what she wants, but as it goes along, you find out what she's planning. But he doesn't want to do that because he realizes she's strong and they're both strong and they will probably kill each other. So he sort of says, well, marry this friend of mine. And so she does. And she basically puts her efforts into making him more powerful. She just sort of dominates him in many ways. We'll get to that in a moment. And she refuses Eugene any sexual favors, even though he really, he lusts after her. But she is open with her favors, it's pretty clear, to others. In order to get, she carries around this satchel with documents in it, and she gets the dirty on other people. And she uses this to help her husband and herself. And then she actually is helping Eugene to get back into power and in favor with Napoleon, the emperor. And it works. She does get him back, and he becomes Minister of the Interior, I think it is, where he's in charge of the sort of despotic censorship and government of the time. And it's basically a totalitarian society, saying that they need to clamp down hard on freedoms, censorship of literature. There's an interesting little reference in there to a book that was written, and he goes, "Oh, how despicable it basically was, because it's a woman who wants to commit adultery," and Zola was referring to Madame Bovary by Flaubert. Because that book was censored, or at least frowned upon, when it came out during the Second Empire. And there's this sort of sexual tension between Colonnade, I think that's her name. I don't know the pronunciation properly, but and Eugene. And there's really sustained eroticism on a couple occasions that even gets into a little bit of S&M, because she beats him with a riding crop, because she seems to be able to bend men to her will throughout, or most anyway. And she set her sights high. her sights is set for the the emperor, and she bags him in more ways than one. But and she becomes basically his property because she wears a collar, like a dog collar, that basically says she belongs to him and for everybody to see, even though she's still married. And she engineers Eugene's downfall as well. Again, like he has a downfall because he didn't sort of play ball with her and help her in many ways. He always sort of thought women to be weak, and to a certain extent, knowing she's not weak, but in general they don't have enough power to do things. But she winds up being more powerful in different ways than he is. And that's basically where it ends. He's in disgrace again, and she's at the top of where she could go pretty well, and she has the emperor's ear, and she can make or break anybody in France. It's a story that's deep in politics of the country, politics between people and individuals, personal politics, and the maneuvering. It's satirical in many ways because it's very heightened, especially the sexual relationship there. It's extremely heightened, and it's, as I say, it's satirical in many ways of what was happening then, because it was a police state, and they then turn around and then say, well, he doesn't see. That's the thing. He doesn't really get his downfall. He does get a downfall, but then they twist things around to say, oh, we've now, conquered the bad in society. Now we're going to give freedoms, but it's all disguised as control. But he makes this big speech at the end, and he's then all of a sudden back in favor. So she is controlling things to a certain extent and behind the scenes, but she can't control everything, I guess. And that's the thing. And that's where it's a bit satirical, but he makes this huge speech that is so reminiscent of sort of politics today, which is kind of interesting because it resonates so much with what's been going on in the past decade here in the UK. And I have no doubt in France, in Germany, in the United States, it echoes so much of what's happening and how things are done. Even though it's heightened and almost over the top at times, it's not, because these things are happening here and now. And it's a really good book. Like it got to a point where I was reading it and I was thinking, well, this is a bit boring because it's the a lot of political talk and the maneuvering. It was interesting, but a bit boring. And I thought it was funny because the one young adult in there says, "Oh, this is boring," talking about the talk, and I had to burst out laughing because I just moments before thought that in my mind. So maybe Zola was aware of that, and I'd like to think so, that he was aware of that, so put that in for a bit of comedy relief. But it is very modern in many, many ways, because Zola was interested in that period and how commerce, industry was moving things forward very, very quickly. Capitalism and cities, and how cities, like the proliferation of cities and all that, is changing society. And yes, there's things that anchor it for the time, because obviously when they go out and they're going somewhere and they go to get a Brougham or a Landau or a coupe, carriages, that are mentioned. It would be sort of like a limo or something like that would be mentioned today. But and some of the fashion too is sort of of the period. But otherwise, the interactions between people are very, very modern. very modern. It's like it's as if it was written today, in many many ways, and I don't know if that's due a large part to the translation, which is very good because it makes it very very readable, or that's the way it is in French too. That these people are moderns. They aren't, you know, because when you do read stuff that's sort of like in the 1800s at times, you know that the styles, the sensibilities, and everything is of that period. There is in this as well, but there is that other tinge of modernity that overpowers those other things. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to continuing with this. This was very good. This was written originally in 1871, I think, or 72. 71, I think, 1871. And again, just to recap, it's the whole series is sort of like a comedy humane about society, but during the Second Empire, and it's 20 volumes that Zola eventually wrote. And I'm not reading them in publication order. I'm reading them within internal chronology, the order that Zola said that it should be read. And then, so that makes the second one here is The Kill. And this one's a bit shorter. This one's like 260 some pages. And I don't know, do I get a date for this one? Looks like it was translated in 2004. But no, I don't see an original date for this. I'd have to look. Oh, it's published in 1872. So this one would have been 1871 then. So this is 1872. So I'm looking forward to that for March. And until next time, Book 2, thank you.